Jess. Welcome to the show. I am very excited, one, for this conversation
Mhm.
and about boundaries in your business. I know there's such huge benefits to setting and implementing boundaries in your business, but also I'm very excited to get to chat with you again because we met in person a couple months ago, and immediately, like, you were one of the other photographers there that as soon as we started talking, I was like, okay, cool. Yeah, we're immediately friends.
Yes.
This is great. So, yeah, thank you for being on the show. I'm excited to have you here.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Oh, yeah.
What
Yeah.
what kind of mug is that? I'm so curious. What's
It's,
on your mug?
it is an owl. Let me see if I can get it in focus with the camera.
I
But
see.
yeah, it's a hand
Um,
carved, like it's
Cute.
thick walled ceramic mug that I got in let's see, where was it? Riviera Maya, like
Oh, that's where we
4
honeymooned.
years ago. Oh, nice. We
Love Riviera.
honeymooned in Cancun, so just down the road from
Not
you.
far. Yeah.
Yeah,
Love Mexico.
it's great.
Affordable, beautiful.
Yes. Yeah.
Mhm.
And yeah, it's, closer to the equator, so it is nice because we got married in January. Actually, last
Mhm.
week, as we're recording this, last week was our anniversary, and 10 years.
Oh my
Thanks.
goodness. That's
Yeah.
huge.
is is
Congratulations.
is huge. Is a big
It's huge.
milestone,
Mhm.
and yeah, it was very interesting. We had what we call our state of our union
Mhm.
address, where we like sit down and talk about the last year. We try to do that around every anniversary, and we were talking about that and just like, it doesn't feel like 10 years, but I also
Mhm.
don't really remember much before we met. It's
Oh,
just like, it always seems like we've been together.
I love
But yeah,
that.
being January, we definitely wanted to go somewhere warm,
Mhm.
and in Mexico is a great place to
Oh my
go.
gosh.
It's
Yes.
it's like you said, fairly inexpensive
Mhm.
for an international trip,
Yeah.
and yeah, it was great. We stayed in a
The
little
water is
resort,
crystal
and
clear. It's always warm. We're scuba
yes,
divers, so we like to go anywhere we can get in the water and not have to put on
yeah,
a 5 mil wetsuit. So,
yes,
yeah.
yeah. The West Coast is
Mm-mm.
not the place for me to like. I love the cold,
Yeah.
but I think the first time that I was out in California for an extended period of time was
Mhm.
probably like, maybe I was 18 or 19, and
Mhm.
I had only really been in the Gulf of Mexico,
Uh-huh.
which is pretty warm water and also
Mhm.
murky and brown and disgusting.
Yeah.
Uh,
Mhm.
but like, I just ran straight into the water, and it was
Oh,
like
no.
60-degree water, and I was like,
Mhm.
"Oh, this is cold."
Mhm.
I was not ready for this. It was still like May.
Yeah.
I thought that it would have been warmer. Um, so yeah, yeah,
Yeah. No.
anywhere. I'm a huge water person. I will
Mhm.
be in the water if I am near it,
Mhm.
and having a place where it is nice, warm, clear water is
Yeah.
perfect.
Similar story when we went to Thrive. That's actually the first time I've ever been to California.
Oh,
And I just
cool.
assumed all oceans are warm in the summer. So my husband
Hmm.
educated me a few months back. He's like, just because it's always sunny in California does not mean the water is going to be warm. And it was November, but still,
Right.
I needed to put my feet in the ocean. So it
Yes.
was dark. It was the first night we arrived. We walked across the street from our hotel that we were all in, and I couldn't see anything. We had our flashlights on our phones, and I went and put my bare feet in that water, and I thought I was doing the polar bear plunge, and then
Oh yeah.
walked all the way back and got the cold sand stuck to my feet. I was miserable. I was like, I did it, but I am not swimming in that water.
Yeah. You're like, okay, I made it into the ocean. We are good.
We're good.
Check.
Yeah, let's
Check
go
that
back to
one off. Yeah.
the
Yeah.
room.
It's the same. I think I went in there once,
Hmm.
and that was it.
Yeah.
I am usually, if I'm near the beach, I am just going to be in the water the whole time.
Hmm.
I
Yeah.
love it. But yeah, it's
Same.
that cold water
I don't want
is
anything to
not
do with
as relaxing.
it.
Uh,
No.
but
And it gets worse as you get older. Like you just really
yeah,
want nothing
it
to do with it the
it
older you
does. Yeah,
get.
especially like even just being like knee deep in there, and then you
Hmm.
get out and you're like, "Ow, my knees ache now.
Yeah.
This is not for me. I'm getting too old."
Yeah.
Uh,
For all the
which
20-year-olds watching, it will happen.
I know. Yeah, and I still like, I feel
Mhm.
in my mind like I'm
Mhm.
24.
Yeah,
Like, oh yeah,
same.
I'm 24. I'm
Mhm.
good. I'm whatever. I'm, I can, like, we were somewhere, I don't remember where we were, with the kids, and there's a basketball court, and I was like, I'm just gonna get out here and run around, do some basketball, and just like nearly turned my ankle. I was like,
Oh,
okay, I am not 17 anymore. I cannot
mhm,
do all of this.
mhm. Yeah.
Which, fun fact with basketball, I am. So before we started recording, for the
Mhm,
listeners, we were talking about elliptical machines and stuff, and my wife and I just bought one, trying to work out, get in better shape. One of my goals is that by the time that my oldest, who is 8 currently, is in high
mhm,
school, I want to be able to dunk a basketball again. Because that was a big accomplishment in high school. When I turned 17, I
mhm.
got my vertical up enough to where I could dunk. And I probably will never be able to, because I have a very different body than I did at 17. But that's a goal. I'm going to work toward it. Even if I
Mhm,
don't hit that goal,
mhm,
I'm at least going to get somewhere between where I currently am and
mhm.
where that goal is. And that's going to be a good space. So,
I'm just
uh,
going to remind you, as a man thinketh, so is he. So
yes,
I want you to reframe the way you say whether or not you're going to reach that goal, because you can do it. You can
I
do it.
can.
Yeah.
I can do it. I
Mhm.
can absolutely do it. And
Yeah.
it's for sure going to take a lot of work, but I'm here for it.
Heck
I
yeah.
am. Yeah.
Heck
So,
yeah.
yeah. Well, okay. So, Jess, give us a little backstory about you, how you got into photography, where you're based, all those kinds of things.
Sure. Yeah. So, my name is Jessica Lowell. I am a wedding and portrait photographer. I'm in Northeast Georgia. So that's like an hour north of Atlanta. We are up here in the mountains where we've got like beautiful views, lots of
Mhm.
vineyards. And how I got into being a photographer. So, I could give you the sappy story how I've always had a camera in my hand. Every party, I used to have a disposable camera and I would drop it off and get it developed. But in my early 20s, I was a skydiver. My whole family skydives, my dad, my brother, and myself. And we
Cool.
did that for about a decade. After my first year of skydiving, you get about 100 jumps in and you really know what you're doing. You really know how to fly your body. You really know how to land your canopy. Then I wanted to stop spending money skydiving and start making money skydiving. So I got a camera helmet. I set up a Canon Rebel on the top of my head. And then over here, we had like a Sony camera. This is before GoPros. So like a
Uh-huh.
15-pound helmet, maybe not that much. But you strap that sucker to your head, and I started learning how to fly with tandem. So if you were going to go skydiving, and you did a tandem and you paid extra to get the video or the photos, I would be the person that would jump out with you and record the whole thing. So
Wow.
I did that for we drove down to the drop zone every Friday, had a camper there, left every Sunday evening. I did that every weekend, weather pending, for 8 or so years, I'd say. It was a long time.
Wow.
So then in '09, I had my first neck surgery because, again, camera equipment on your head, and then you're like
Uh-huh.
going 150 miles an hour, and then you throw your parachute, and then you're not. So it's like a lot of whiplash.
I
Um,
can only imagine, like, just the straps on a
yeah.
wedding day and like
Oh,
holding my camera bodies.
yeah.
Like, I can only imagine if that is
Mhm.
just strapped to my head
Yeah.
and doing
Hmm.
that, just walking around, much less flying from an airplane.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, when you're in the air, you really don't feel it. But that's
Uh-huh.
why I'm now a huge advocate for the spider belt system. Because, like I said, I had to have a neck surgery, and then
Hmm.
I did continue to jump after that. But then my mother got sick; she got cancer, and then I went back to school. I went back to school in my late 20s. I got a sociology degree because I was doing some prison ministry, and I really just loved working with the women in the prison, and I wanted to be a counselor in the prison system. So. Four years goes by, and I needed some electives. And so I was
Hmm.
like, oh, photography. That's all me. I already know what to do. I took film in high school, and it was really cool because even um, however many years ago, it was like 8 years ago, they still taught film. I went to Piedmont College, it's in Demarest, and they still taught film for photography 101.
Yeah.
So I had a film class, and then I had 2 digital classes. And then as I was wrapping up and getting ready to graduate, I had a internship at drug court, which is like a huge thing for me. I'm really passionate about the recovery process and addiction. But being in drug court and being around probation officers and this community of people that's been doing it so long, it's like they don't really believe what they're doing. And I was like, I don't think I actually can work in this environment. And about that time, it was really a God thing. It was never on my radar. It was just like this whisper that, like, the Lord's like, you're going to be a wedding photographer. And I was like, I've only ever been in my own wedding, like never even been bridesmaid, you know? So I started shooting families in our church. And then, I just self-taught YouTube how to, exposure triangle, all of the things, because I hadn't really been shooting in manual mode. How to light subjects, because even if you take photography classes in school, they teach you how to shoot like still fruit and stuff, like creative art. They don't really teach you how to shoot people. And then I would take mom and dad from the families in my church, and I would just post them and take lots of pictures of them. And those were the photos that I would share on my social media. So it would look like I only shot couples. And then I did a bridal show in 2016 in January, and with pictures of all these couples. And I was like, I'm a wedding photographer. I had shot one wedding the fall before for a friend of a friend, and basically did it for $500. But when I did that wedding, I knew at the end of the evening that that's what I was supposed to do for my life, with my life. So like I said, fast forward a few months, I just announced that I'm a wedding photographer, and people paid me, and it exploded. It was a huge blessing from God. I know that is not the advice people give. Second shoot a lot, shoot for years. And I'm like, I just did it, and there was a market for a beginner level wedding photographer, and that's what I charged. And then as more people hired me, and as I photographed more weddings, I started increasing my prices. And here I am today. I shoot luxury weddings mostly now. And that's the story.
That is a great story. I love, like, you took us on a journey through all of that, which is great. I have always, one of my bucket list goals is to skydive. And I had actually, when my wife and I were dating, we had got like a Groupon thing to do, like, buy one get one skydiving, which doesn't sound the best, but it was Groupon, so it was fun. Is Groupon still a thing? I don't know if that's still a thing.
I have no idea.
I have not heard of it in years. But yeah, it ended up not working out with my work schedule, and she went with her roommate, and so I still have not done it, but
your wife has?
She has, yeah.
Oh no!
Yeah, and she was like, "We're definitely gonna." Oh, she loved it. Yeah,
good.
Okay. It was a thrill. So yeah, we are planning to go, the two of us, at some point in the future. She's actually working on getting her pilot's license here in the next couple years. So
really, private pilot, I'm assuming.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
So yeah.
So those things totally translate. My dad was a private pilot when we were kids. And he used to be a hang glider. So like adrenaline sports is big in our family. So naturally, my dad actually that was my 18th birthday present, was my first skydive. Nice. And it was for my brothers too. He's a year and a half older than me. But you have to know, when you learn to skydive on your own, as you go through, it's called AFF, it's accelerated free fall. You have to learn winds aloft and how to plan where, based on today's winds and today's weather, where your plane is going to let out so that you can safely fly back to the landing area. So everything that she's learning to be a private pilot completely translates into skydiving. So that's really cool.
Yeah. Okay. That's great. Yeah. all interconnected, whether you're in the plane or jumping out of it.
Exactly. Yeah.
But yeah, and I love that, like, whenever you talked about how you shot your first wedding and then just immediately fell in love with it, I find that most wedding photographers, unless you're just like in it for the money, because you're like, oh yeah, weddings, that's where the money is, which weddings, not where the money was for me for years,
Oh
because
no.
I was definitely that entry level budget couple.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I was shooting weddings for $500, $700 for, you know, a good year or two before I felt confident enough to raise my prices, and I should have done it a lot sooner.
Mm-hmm.
But
But we've
yeah,
all been
it's
there.
we've all
So
been there. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. And but yeah, like I love that you also you did that wedding. You're like, this is for me. This
Mm-hmm.
is, I feel like it's either you absolutely fall in love with weddings, or you're just like, this is not for me.
Wouldn't touch him
The
with a 10-foot pole.
No,
Yeah.
I've had a lot of second shooters and third
Mm-hmm.
shooters who come along to just see what it's like working a wedding, and then they're like,
Yeah.
there's so much going on. I don't
Mm-hmm.
think I can handle keeping track of all of these things
Yeah.
in my mind. I was like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, then this is probably not for you. You
Yeah.
do not want to mess up on in a really important day for someone else.
Hmm. On two occasions, I've had interns come with me. I'm very picky about letting an intern into my business,
Mm,
and like introducing them to my couple, because like with my couples, my heart is more to serve them on their wedding day, and then the bonus is that they get amazing pictures. That's what I tell them.
yes.
So I'm very picky because I serve my couples. I never look at something on a wedding day and think that's not my job. Um, and but I've brought two ladies on two separate occasions to shadow me. I tell my couples they're interns basically, and just to see what the day. I don't make them carry bags or anything. They've asked me, they're interested, they want to see what wedding photography is all about. They're both photographers, and after a work day with me, neither of them wanted to photograph weddings, and I'm like, I'm not a
Yeah.
bad teacher. It's just they saw how much work goes into a wedding day, and they're like, no, I'm going to stick to shooting children. And I'm like, good, because I do
Yeah.
not shoot children well. We need
Yeah.
you.
Oh yeah. Yeah, we all like, I think that's a really important thing for, you know, the newer photographers out there, that you're really trying to find your place,
Hmm.
and doing those internships and doing, you know, unpaid work, just like shadowing a newborn photographer and seeing what all that is like,
Hmm.
because that is not for me at
Not for me
all.
either.
I've done that a couple times,
Hmm.
and unless it's like lifestyle newborns, and even that, I'm like, maybe.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's I do feel like the from the outside, wedding photography does look very glamorous, and
Hmm.
does look like you're just like chatting and like, here, let's run through this field over here, and I'll take
Hmm.
pictures of your dress flying behind you.
Yeah.
But there, you don't really see the behind the scenes too much of the stress of a wedding day, and how
No.
we as photographers absorb a lot of that stress
Hmm.
so that our couples don't feel it.
Exactly. And you have to be able to think on your feet. Just this week, I tell my couples,
Yeah.
I think I've seen everything. But even though you have a timeline and you're good at keeping the timeline, if something happens that is out of your control, but you still need to
Mhm.
get your job done, guess who it falls back on if you don't get all the photos? So you need to be able, if you had 30 minutes planned with your couple for bride and groom portraits, and now you got 5, the stress is on you, and you better be able to work well under pressure.
Right.
My wedding last weekend, uh, easily $100,000 budget wedding. The makeup artist was an hour late getting the bride done. An hour.
Oh,
An
yeah.
hour. Yeah. Um, didn't want to touch that with a 10-foot pole, but
Uh-huh.
mom, like
Yeah.
mother of the bride, is starting to stress out, almost get a little mad. And I kept calming her down. Now I've already photographed one of her daughters, so they knew I had them.
Uh-huh.
But I just kept telling mom, I was like, Mom, remember I told you I padded the timeline. It's fine. I know what to do. We had to swap some things. We were supposed to move to the venue location to do first look, and then I was going to come back and get the bride. Well, that added 15 minutes. So I was like, we're going to do first look in the front yard. And then I'm going to put them both in my car. So like, you just have to be able to think on your feet and work well under pressure. Cause when you found out like you had 30 minutes to do something and now you have 5, you
Uh-huh.
better not you can't be the kind of person where you just shut down under that kind of stress.
Yes.
So, yeah, weddings are, you can have perfect wedding days, but then when you have the ones that aren't, you better be prepared for them.
Yes. And I find that most of them aren't. There's always
Mm.
something that's going to happen. I
Yeah.
had a wedding recently that everything was on time or early.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just like, I don't know what to do. This feels so weird. Like
Yes.
there's no fires to put out, and
Yeah.
we're just like
I
doing
know.
everything really quickly and really well, and everyone's smiling and having a great time. Like
Yeah.
this is different.
Yeah.
uh,
I'll look at my second shooter. I'm like, we're 30 minutes ahead of schedule. Did we
yeah.
forget something? What did we
Uh-huh.
miss? Yeah, I love when that happens, but at the same time, you're right. You're like, something feels off. I feel like I forgot something.
Yeah. Yeah. It's always like, okay, something big better not happen
Yeah.
because nothing has happened yet.
Hmm.
But yeah, well, that's the ups and downs and craziness of
Hmm.
being a wedding photographer.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, it's a lot, and I know like you mentioned second shooting earlier, and like how you didn't, and you kind of
Mm-mm.
jumped right in. I also didn't.
Heck
I
yeah.
had reached out to a couple photographers to second shoot, and I was living in the Austin area, and they
Hmm.
were not friendly,
Yeah.
and they're like, no, you're going to take my business, or I don't want to share my secrets, or
Hmm.
these images. And I was like, I don't need the images, I'm okay.
Yeah.
Like I just
Hmm.
want the experience, and
Yeah.
didn't get anything, so I had to learn on the wedding day with real couples,
Hmm.
which definitely
You gotta
made.
do what you gotta do. Yeah.
Oh
It's
yeah.
really hard. I never even reached out to anybody. I didn't know that was a thing. I'm standing here at this bridal show, and I had been in sales my whole life. Like during the recession, I sold dental lab software to dental labs, that made teeth. That's supposed to make their
Uh-huh.
lab more productive, except it was the recession. Nobody was spending money, 08, 09.
No.
But we would go to trade shows. There's this huge dental trade show in February in Ohio, Chicago, sorry. And we would go that every year, and they taught me how to do trade shows. So when I went to my bridal show, I just knew what to do. I knew how to talk to people. I knew how to get their information. But I'll never forget. I
Hmm.
invited my husband. This is Rick. At the last minute, I was like, "You want to go with me?" I already had my booth all set up, and so he got all dressed up. He stood there with me, and as there's this one couple that came around twice, and when she came around the second time with her entourage, she's like, "What do you charge for a second shooter?" And I was like, uh and we had a second shooter at our wedding, but like
Uh-huh.
my brain is like, I'm not friends with any other photographers. The ones I
Right.
do know are better than me, so I don't think I could afford to pay them based on what I'm telling you. I'm gonna charge you. And like I just froze. Like I was like, and my husband, because I told you earlier before we started recording, he's the research guy. He reads the
Yes.
manuals. My husband, when I told him I was launching a wedding photography business, he started doing the research. He already knew who Jasmine and JD were. Newer
Uh-huh.
photographers don't know. Jasmine Star used to be a wedding photographer. He already knew who Zach and Jody Gray were. He already knew Caitlin and Michael. So I had no idea. So by the time like the third couple was like, "How much do you charge for a second shooter?" And I was like, my husband steps up and he goes, "We're a husband and wife team. That's included in the price." I'm like,
It's like,
"Do you know how to work a camera? I'm going to kill you right now." And I
right,
just
yeah.
smiled and went, "Uh-huh," like this.
Yeah.
And my husband taught himself and second shot with me for the first couple of years. Yeah, but that's just a funny story how that started. I think I just got off on a
That's
rabbit trail. I'm
That's
sorry.
perfect. Hey, the we're all about tangents here.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that's great. And
But yeah, he
that's
had no
totally.
experience either, and he just started
Yeah.
shooting the grooms. And honestly, if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't know how to use like off-camera flash and lighting and all that stuff because he has the technical brain. So I
Hmm.
got to give him all the credit for that. But yeah, sometimes you just got to do what you got to do. I know people reach
Right.
out to me with no experience and they want to be a second shooter. My clientele is it's a luxury, it's more luxury brand. I can't take a new second shooter on. It's nothing personal, but depending on who you are, how we know each other, like I said, I might let you start shadowing me. But sometimes you reach out and like you said, they're just worried about competition. That's not my
Hmm.
fear because I know that I believe, the way I believe is that the Lord's already handpicked my clients. So I don't have to worry about that, just like he's handpicked yours. So it's not a competition thing. I actually really enjoy teaching. My second shooter that I have now for most of my weddings that replaced my husband, she was newer. But I enjoy teaching her all the things. And when I get inquiries, I want to help her grow her business. When I get inquiries that I have to turn away, whether it's budget or schedule or because of the boundaries in my business, I always send them to her because I love her so much and I want her business to grow too. So it's not a competition thing. Sometimes it's
Yeah.
just a level thing. So if anybody's listening and they are having a hard time finding second shooting gigs, instead of reaching out to some of the more established photographers, maybe reach out to some of the newer ones and maybe you can form a friendship there. So that's just a little piece of advice because
Yeah.
sometimes that's why it's hard to get in when you're new.
100%. Yeah. And
Mhm.
that's probably what I did was I know I just Googled like Austin area wedding photographers, and then
Yeah.
I just emailed the ones that showed up. And those were
Uh-huh.
probably the very established, the ones that
Hmm.
had, years and years of SEO pointing to Google to get them to that front page.
Yeah.
And instead I should have like jumped to page 12 and been like, hey, I see that you have just like an Instagram page or a
Hmm.
Facebook group. Can I second shoot with you?
Yeah.
And
And
yeah,
then maybe
like
you can learn off each other if you're both newbies too.
right.
So,
Yeah.
hmm.
Yeah. And to your point, like building that community and networking with other photographers is so huge, especially early on in your business, where
Hmm.
you can really just like link arms with other
Yeah.
photographers and grow
Hmm.
together.
Yeah.
And whenever you learn something new about off camera flash, share it with each other and just be like, did you know about what TTL is? And then they can learn something new and y'all are all elevating together and going through life together.
Exactly. My second shooter, just like you brought up flash, she had flashes, but like as far as
Mm-hmm.
using them or confidently using them, I teach what's called Flash for Dummies. I teach you how to turn it on, how to set it, and then you don't have to worry about it anymore. Like no technical, no need to know like what is rear curtain sync and all that stuff.
Right.
And she actually texted me a few months ago and she's shooting at one of her own weddings. She's like, I tried to go back to natural light at receptions. I just can't do it anymore. I need 4 off-camera flashes. I'm like, yes, girl.
Oh
Yes.
yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, is when you really can learn what off camera flash can do, you can make it look so natural,
Yeah.
but like it's well lit across the board instead of like, okay,
Hmm.
we have 30 more minutes of sun, the sun outside, or
Hmm.
whenever you have your settings all set for the toasts and then the
Hmm.
VJ's just like, let's drop the lights, and then you're like, oh no,
Yeah.
I cannot do anything now,
Yeah.
and you're scrambling to go find your flash, and
Hmm.
then it
Well,
just doesn't look natural.
I will never forget the time I walked into a venue and it was one where they had it was my second year. It was more of a DIY wedding. We had a church ceremony and then we went over to a venue I'd never been at before. It was really just a small like reception hall. But I walked in and all the walls were black and the ceiling was painted black and the only lighting they had were like Christmas lights, white Christmas lights just dangled along the wall, not even across the ceiling, and no windows. So I, today's couples don't have that, but then I mean I had to turn on my flashes and I had to turn them on fast and figure it out. And I always tell newer photographers sometimes, like, you never know, the day's coming when you walk into a venue that's too dark for you to natural shoot,
Yeah.
but anyway, that's another story.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's definitely something that you want to learn before you're there on the day
Yeah.
and have to figure it out
Hmm.
on the clock.
Yeah.
But okay, Jess, I want to talk about boundaries. I love
Mhm.
I love all the conversation that we've had so far. I feel like you and I, we can just like, we'll go on for a couple of hours, which we might,
Mhm.
and just do like a 3-part episode or something.
There we go.
But like you've already mentioned a little bit about setting some boundaries in your
Mhm.
business. Why are boundaries important in our businesses?
Yes, yes, this is good. Okay, so I have some notes, so you might be seeing me reading. I am ADHD, so it is very easy for me to get off track. But so first thing, I just want to say, I looked up the definition for everybody. So the
Thanks.
definition of a boundary is, it says a limit or a subject of a sphere of activity. So just, when we're talking about boundaries, we're talking about putting limits in your life and in your activities. And then first I want to say is that boundaries depend on what season of life you're in, right? Boundaries in your business are going to depend on what season of life you're in and what season of your business you are in. If you have a brand new business, like we're talking, you're a newbie. I had this I had this viewpoint that I talk about. Everybody's always talking about their uh, client avatar, or, what's your ideal
Yeah.
client. When you're new in business, my ideal client is anybody willing to pay me.
Yeah. Anyone with
I don't care
money
who
that
you
will
are.
pay me.
You have money, you're trusting me with it. That's my ideal client. Because in your new years of business, you are hustling. You are trying to find people to trust you, to hire you, to sign your contract, and you're building your portfolio. So that season of business looks a little different. You're probably editing photos at midnight and still working your full-time 40-hour a week job somewhere, or
Oh, yeah.
you're thinking about the days you'll be out of the corporate world. So now, like, if you're full-time, like for me now, my business is established. I learned the kind of boundaries I want by what do they say when you learn by, not example. I
Like
learned the
trial by
boundaries.
fire.
Trial by fire.
Yeah.
That's the one. Trial by fire. I learned the kind of boundaries I wanted in my business because of those first years of business where I had none. I learned what I did and didn't want to do. So, kind of like this one time, and my husband, like I said, he second shot with me for the first couple of years, but he's never going to leave his career. He loves what he does. He's a builder. And he was still working in Atlanta, which is an hour drive from where we live, every day.
Mm.
And Atlanta traffic, I think, is top 3 worst in the world. So
It's bad. Yeah.
it's bad. So driving to and from Atlanta Monday through Friday, working. And then I booked us a doubleheader wedding. And when I booked the second one, when I booked them back to back, those first years of business, like, money, you're giving it to me, building my portfolio, gaining experience, getting my name out there. And so when I looked at my calendar, I was like, okay, I have a wedding on Friday. I can shoot the wedding on Saturday. I just looked at my calendar. I didn't look at the locations.
Oh no.
Then we go to plan the timeline a year later, because it's usually 9 to 18 months ahead when somebody books their wedding photographer. So then
Right.
I go to plan the timelines for this doubleheader wedding. And one wedding was in Athens, and we went through midnight. And the next wedding the next day was more of an early afternoon wedding, and it was a 4.5-hour drive away. And
Yeah.
my husband had already worked 40 hours. Well, he usually works like 60 hours that week. My poor husband. So we shot one wedding, drove 4.5 hours, got to our hotel in the wee hours of the morning, and then woke up like 3 hours later. And in that time, you've got to swap out your cards, back up your images, charge your batteries, all the things.
Yep.
So it's like, yeah, I don't like double headers. I don't need them. I don't like them. Doesn't matter if they're 20 minutes apart. I shot several double headers for the first couple of years, and now I'm like, no, I don't do them. I don't want to. My second couple never gets the energy. So boundaries can look like, how many weddings, if you're a wedding photographer, for instance, how many weddings you want to shoot in a month, how many you want to shoot in a year, how many sessions you want to shoot in a week. But the main thing is why you need boundaries in business. What I will say is that when life happens, and life will happen, life happens to everybody. When something in life happens, you don't want your calendar so booked, so scheduled that you have no choice but to work through it.
Yeah.
Or you're scrambling, trying to find somebody to step into your role. And if you need somebody to step into your role, like if you need somebody to cover your wedding for you, that's also a good reason to have friends that are as talented or more talented as you. And then, you are able to afford whatever they're going to charge you for stepping into your role. But, because life will happen. So that's why I say boundaries, you need boundaries in your business. You need flexibility in your calendar. Because if your business is getting all of you, depending on your stage of life, that means that the other parts of your life are getting less of you. So you've got 3 kids, you want to make sure you have energy to love them well, because that's your first ministry. That's your first priority, to make sure they grow up to be loving, kind humans, right? And they don't ever want to feel like they come second to your work. So that's why I think boundaries are very important. I don't just think they are.
Yeah. I think it, and I also know this.
Yeah.
It's like you were saying, like when you say yes to something like that double header, you're also saying no to something
Something
else,
else.
even if you're not directly saying no to like family time or being
Exactly.
available. Like this last weekend, there was, my wife works for Texas A&M, and they had a big special family event where we got to go do a lot of uh, like fun stuff in the sporting area
Mm-hmm.
and go down this giant man-made mountain for teaching how to ski, and we
Mm-hmm.
just like tobogganed down that with the
So
kids.
fun.
And like
Uh-huh.
making those memories, I was like, this is why I set that boundary to not
Mm-hmm.
book every single weekend.
Yes.
Because at one point in, years ago,
Mm-hmm.
I was I one month I had 9 weddings
Mm. Oof.
in one
I
month
feel that.
period. Yeah.
Oof.
And it
Yeah.
was just because they kept coming in, and I was like, all right, this October is
Mm-hmm.
going to be great. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and it was like financially, we were doing very well that month.
Mm-hmm.
However, I was a zombie in those weddings toward the end of the month. I was just like you mentioned earlier with like a double header, that
Mm-hmm.
second couple never gets your full energy.
Mm-mm.
And I don't feel right charging for a double header, because I
Mm-hmm.
know that that first couple, they're going to get normal John.
Yeah.
Second couple, they're going to get like at least 80%, if not
Mm-hmm.
less than that.
Yeah.
And especially with like a driving 4.5 hours and
Mm-hmm.
3 hours of sleep, like
Yeah.
they would be getting 15%, John.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not fair to them to get less.
Exactly.
And that's a hard place to get to turn away money and to
Mm-hmm.
turn away couples, especially if they're like your ideal couples, and you're
Yeah.
like, oh, this would be so great to work with
Mm-hmm.
you.
Or a venue you've never worked at. Like I've learned
Right.
my lesson. I quit booking couples based on their venue. Like when I see what venue they're at, I'm like, we got to book it. I don't care what my boundary is. I've
Uh-huh.
learned that lesson. It's said that time is the only resource that you can never earn back. And
Yes.
that is so true. And yeah, maybe a 20-year-old, maybe even 40-year-old. I mean, I can give 100% during a double header. I can kind of do both. Like, it's probably my ADHD, the hyperactivity part of me. But then like Sunday, I literally will say on Sunday, I'm like, I've used all of my words for the week. Don't speak
Yes.
to me, to my loved ones, right? To my loved ones. I'm like, I've used all my words for the week. And like you said, that October for you was um, uh, financially amazing and it feels good. But it felt good the 9 to 18 months before when you were taking the retainers. You're like, oh, this is going to be an
Yes.
awesome month. But then you worked through the month and you're like, I can never do that again. You had that trial by fire where you're like, oh, now I need boundaries. And then you mentioned
Yes.
your kids. So my daughter is older. I had her young. She's 21. And when I started my business, she was late middle school. And then as we got through her high school years, her junior and senior year, that's when I really, really hunkered down on boundaries because there were things I didn't want to miss. Because once the kids move out,
Yeah.
you don't know that yet, but once the kids move out, they have their own, they get their driver's license, they move out, go to college, they have their friend people, they meet their significant other one day.
Mm-hmm.
It's time you don't get back. So like and Macy was in cheer, so was on cheer team for her high school, and she was in an all-star, she was a flyer. So I would have to take the calendars for cheer competitions from the year before because they wouldn't release them and try to map out my calendar and guess which competitions we were going to and what weekends they would be on, because again, we're booking a year in advance and we don't have the sports schedule yet. And then like senior year, I had to go to the school and find out what the past prom dates were. And so I could, the year in advance, block out what I thought was going to be prom date. Fun fact, that worked in her junior year. But her senior year, for the first time in
Uh,
7 years, the school decided to change the month they did senior prom in. So guess who missed her daughter's senior prom?
yeah.
This girl.
Yeah.
I did.
Yeah. Because it'd
Um,
be fun to have it in, April instead
March.
of
They had it early March.
March.
None of our stores even had prom dresses out yet. Like they had it that early. And March is when we start having weddings here in North Georgia. So yeah, I
Uh,
had a wedding for my daughter's senior prom. And the person who took her photos wasn't her mama. So, so even if you have boundaries, sometimes they can still fail you. But it is the thing about boundaries is you want to figure out what's important to you in your life, what's really important, because like I said, life will happen, and then work your work schedule around that.
Yes. Yeah. Because even if you're listening to this and you're like, I am not married, I am not dating, I do not have kids, it is just me and my dog or whatever, like still figure out, maybe it isn't kids because you don't have them, but like what is important to you?
Mm-hmm.
Is it having a Saturday off where you can just go grab brunch with friends, or, go on a random trip,
Mm-hmm.
and drive to a city and
Yeah.
do some street photography or something fun, and
Mm-hmm.
just like refresh your soul, like
Yeah.
what is important to you, and then plan for that.
Exactly. But at the same time, you could be young and you can be single and you can put 60 weddings on your calendar. Heck yeah, if
Yeah.
you can do that, do it. But when I say life happens, it's those things that you're not expecting. So I was only 27 years old when my mom was diagnosed with terminal cancer. She had breast cancer, but when they found it, it was everywhere. And then just recently, over the last few weeks, my dad was diagnosed with cancer. And after all of the extra testing to make sure it hasn't metastasized, we actually found out my dad has two primary cancers. I don't know what the odds are that both your parents get cancer and the last living one has two. But the good
Uh-huh.
news is, just want to put it out there, the good news is they're both early stages. It doesn't look like either has metastasized. But, my dad has cancer and I'm thankful he's having surgery this Thursday. One of the boundaries in my business is I don't work weddings. I don't schedule weddings in January. I'll have to explain my most recent wedding, and February, because one, this past weekend was the 9-year anniversary of Atlanta's famous Snowmageddon. Google it. I'm not going to explain it to you, but we never know what kind of winter weather we're going to have here. And we're in the mountains and we don't really have salt trucks. So if it snows, it stays snow for maybe 24 hours, then it melts. And then when the sun goes back down, it freezes. So in our mountain roads, everything turns to ice and it is not safe to drive. I don't care how good you can
No.
drive in the snow, nobody can drive in ice. So, and most of my weddings, if they're an hour away, like if they're in the city, I, I don't want to have to call my couple and be like, hey, I'm stuck in the mountains. So I just don't, and I don't like the cold. We talked about that earlier. The older we get, I just don't want to shoot in the cold.
Uh-huh.
Some boundaries, though, are meant to be broken, but you need to have rules for when you're going to break your boundaries. So that wedding I was telling you about that I did just shoot in January, last weekend, again, it was the sister of a bride that I had shot 3 years ago. And when she sent me an email, told me who she was, and she's like, you are the one thing from my sister's wedding day that we know we can't live without. So it was a no-brainer to go, heck yeah, I don't care if it's in January. God blessed us. We had amazing weather.
Yeah.
But when you have some boundaries set up, even if you're young, let's get back on topic. Even if you're young, life does happen.
Mm-hmm.
So again, you don't want your calendar to be so full that you have to work through your calendar instead of spending time with like your father who has cancer. So I am able to take my dad to his appointments. I am able to be with him at his surgery on Thursday. And even if it was during a busy month, even if it was October, I would still have enough boundaries. I only shoot 1 to 2 sessions a week. I only shoot 2 weddings a month. It would still be something that I would be able to be there for him for. So,
Yeah. Yeah. And I I remember being early on in my career, before kids. We had just gotten married, and I was booking as much as I could
mm-hmm.
because I wanted to build my portfolio, wanted to build
Yep.
my experience, build this business so that I could leave my 9 to 5.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point in time, like that was fine for me,
Yeah.
for my lifestyle. Like you were
Mm-hmm.
saying, like you don't have to, I still needed boundaries to where I wasn't, booking, 3 in a weekend or something that
Mm-hmm.
would just be too much for me.
Yeah.
But I still, because of that, I missed so many birthday parties and just like
Mm-hmm.
hangouts during the summer where people were grilling and pool parties and all that. I'm like, all of my friends, they're all
Mm-hmm.
hanging out without me, and I am here working, which I wanted to do, but 9 months earlier, I really wanted to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And the week before that wedding, I was like, I really don't want to be here. I would rather have at least a couple weekends off in the summer to
Yeah.
hang out with my friends.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm right there with you, where I try and cap it at 2 weddings a month, if
Mm-hmm.
and and also keep track of like the end of the month to the beginning
Mm-hmm.
of the next month,
Mm-hmm.
to where they're not all smushed together in like,
Yes.
3 or 4 weekends in a row.
Mm-hmm.
um, but yeah, so scheduling boundaries 100%. What are some other boundaries that we can implement in our businesses?
Yeah. So, okay. Um, well, you like you just mentioned, you want to make sure in the summer we go into business as wedding photographers. Now, I know other photographers don't always work on the weekends, but as the example, and then like you said, but all your friends who are working Monday through Friday, yay, I work for myself. I get to make up my own rules. But now you're working a weekend job, which is traditionally like as a teenager and you worked in retail or fast food, you always worked the weekends. I just went in
Yeah.
business for myself to always work the weekends. What on earth?
Uh-huh.
So that's another, those 2 months I also don't work is July and August. Here in Georgia, it can be anywhere from 90 to 100 degrees, but it's the 400% humidity. Believe me,
Yes.
if they could tell you it's 400%, it feels like 400%. You have to change your clothes halfway through a wedding day. It's so humid. But like you said, those early years, when you're building a business, you have to hustle. You do, because otherwise you'll never build your business. But once you get established and once you've got word of mouth and once you've got clout and you've been blogging and you have SEO and clients are finding you, and you've raised your prices, it's just important not to stay in that hustle mode and not to stay in that mode where you have zero boundaries when it comes to your calendar. But to get back to the question, what we can implement, and again, like I said, it's going to look different for different stages of life. So you just have to look at your life. Do you have kids? Do you not have kids? Do you have older parents? How established are you? Are you a newbie or are you seasoned? Are you charging enough money that you can say, I'm only taking 10 weddings this year? But that, and then look at your calendar, pick out times you don't want to work. My husband and I, we got married in May 23rd is our wedding anniversary. Well, huge wedding weekend. It usually falls on, it's not
Memorial Day.
Memorial Day. Is it Memorial Day?
Yeah,
Yeah. So it
I
usually
think so.
falls on
Yeah.
a 3-day weekend. And I get leads for that weekend or the weekend of the week of our anniversary all the time. And it never fails. They're like Chateau Lawn weddings or Iona Mountain Vineyard, and they have big budgets. But I'm like, nope, it's our wedding anniversary. Nothing trumps that weekend, and we're going to spend it together. So things that are important to you, holidays. I don't work Christmas. I don't work New Year's. That's not even like a sentimental holiday, but New Year's weddings, they traditionally want you to stay till midnight. I don't, you know and then podcast, if you could see my face right now, it's making a face. But just pick out days of the week you don't want to work on based on what's important to you. I mentioned when we were chatting earlier, I can't remember now if it was before we started recording, but that addiction recovery is big for me. So on Tuesdays, something that just fills my heart is I facilitate classes at a local women's recovery home. It's a residential facility, and I'll be going in a couple hours. I'll head out there because it's a Tuesday now. But that's a big deal for me. So in my office email, it says I don't have office hours on Tuesdays. If I get stuff done before I leave the house on 2 o'clock, fine. But I don't technically work or tell anybody that I have time for business on Tuesdays because I want to go hang out with my ladies at the recovery home. So there's lots of other things. It's just going to be based on what's important to you, what's important in your life. Sundays, I don't take Sunday weddings. The only reason I might make an exception for maybe a Sunday session is if I've got a couple where their wedding is a destination. So they're having to come from out of state or out of town for their session, in which case they're traveling, and coming midweek when they have to work is not a big deal. So I'll do a Sunday evening session in order to preserve my Saturdays with my family. That's
Nice.
the only, again, so have boundaries, but what are your rules for why you would break them? Let's see. Of course, office hours. Office hours is a big one. Rebecca Rice actually just sent out an email today where she was talking about she was such a workaholic. And her
Yep, I
email was
saw
actually
that.
on boundaries. Did you read it?
I
She was
did,
such a
yeah,
workaholic and she had office hours, but never implemented them. And it took her husband having to say, hey, we've got a problem. If you don't follow Rebecca Rice or you haven't read the email yet, it's really good. I don't always read all of the emails because sometimes it's just too much, but it was really good. You know, you have to have some office hours. And again, that's going to depend on your season of life. My child is grown. My husband's at work. But when I started my business, she was in school, my daughter. So it was, 8 or 9 to 5. As soon as my daughter came home from school, as soon as my husband came home from work, shut down the laptop, leave it alone. If you've got littles, if you're nursing every couple of hours and sleeping, your baby's sleeping and waking up every 3 hours, your office hours might actually be at midnight, when the family's asleep and you can get some stuff done. So having office hours based on what works for you and what works in your season of life, but just put them on your email not list, but put them on your email signature or have automatic replies in your email set on at all times. So it doesn't matter when somebody emails you. It just says, hey, this is letting you know I got your email. Expect a return within 24 to 48 hours. Have an automatic reply set up so that it sets that tone so your clients or potential clients or vendors. I had a vendor texting me at 7 p.m. last night for timeline stuff. I'm like, thank you, Jesus, that iPhone now lets me leave you on unread, but that's another thing. The boundaries, teach your clients how you want them to communicate with you. I don't mind texting. I really don't. A lot of people don't like it. I can always leave my phone in the bedroom and not touch it in the evening or whatever. I don't mind texting. So it doesn't bother me if my clients text me, but some people don't want that. So make sure you put that in an email. This is how I need you to communicate with me. Email me anytime and I will respond to you within this many hours, within this many days, on these days of the week, during these hours. So that's another boundary that is very easy to implement right now and just stick to it. Let's see.
Plus having those hours on your email signature, on your website, that you're communicating with your clients, that makes you look really professional.
Yes.
And not just like, I don't know, I'm being scrappy and putting this together. And text me at midnight. It's cool. I'll probably be up. And if that's the case, because like this past fall, my wife had started a new job. She was working 9 to 5 out of the house, which she hadn't in 4 years or more. And then our daycare for our toddlers, they moved. They got a new job and moved out of state. So we had shifted from me having pretty much any time that I needed to work to now she is gone until 5 or 5:30, and I don't have childcare until she gets back because we didn't have babysitters. We didn't have any of that. So I still had my hours of this is when you can contact me, whatever. But I really wasn't getting around to those emails or to my editing or any of that until after 8 p.m. But I still had that boundary set to where the expectations that I was setting for my clients was not, hey, email me at midnight and expect a reply right away. It was, these are my working hours, and if you happen to work outside of those working hours, then that's just like a bonus for them.
You get
but it's not something that you set as an expectation of anytime that you text me, I will be back to you within 20 minutes.
Because you could be eating dinner with your family, and if you've set that precedent that they know you're going to respond to them via text message any hour, they're going to keep texting you any hour of the day. So even if you let them text you, you don't have to respond to it right away. Leave it on unread or pin it or whatever you can do, and then do it when you decide that you're going to do it. So yeah, 100%. That's really good. Great example. The other thing is in my business, I don't do in-person consults anymore or IPS sessions, but that is something I want to touch on is because again, having boundaries on like how many weddings per week you want to shoot and how many sessions in the evenings you want to shoot per week. Then if you're doing either of those things, you also have to think about, well, how many in-person consults do I want to have a week? How many in-person
Yeah.
sales meetings do I want to have per week? Because that's two more different types of moments where you're spending time with clients and not with your loved ones too. So I did
Yes.
want to also just kind of throw that out there. That's something to think about if that is part of your process.
Yes. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that is like, I know that that can feel like you're taking away the experience from your clients of like meeting you face to face and like sipping on coffees and stuff in front of each other.
Mm-hmm.
But with Zoom and with phone calls and all of that, that is actually a way to elevate your client experience, to
Mm-hmm.
give them that freedom of time where instead of setting out the time to drive to a coffee shop, stay there for probably an hour because you're going to get lost chit chatting about whatever or waiting
Mm-hmm.
on them to finish eating their scones,
Mm-hmm.
and then get into the meat of the conversation, and then you have to drive back home, and they're
Yep.
setting aside all that time. Instead they
Mm-hmm.
can just plan to be in front of their computer, still get
Mm-hmm.
to see you face to face, and now it's like a 20-minute little phone call,
Yes.
and you're giving them a better client experience because you're allowing them to keep that time that we've
Mm-hmm.
already mentioned is a finite source that you cannot recreate, and you're
Exactly.
you're able to give them the same experience of like quality of work and like working on timelines or whatever you're going to do in person,
Mm-hmm.
but with less time commitment from them.
Exactly. In my first couple of months of business, I did that. I did that bridal show I was telling you about. And then I set
Uh-huh.
up in-person consultations. And again, I live an hour from the city. So if they were all in Atlanta, I had to drive down there, I would bring my sample albums, all the things, drive back. And it just was eating up my calendar. And I thought, I know there's a better way. I've been in sales my whole life. And that's what, and I actually teach on this. I have a couple YouTube videos on it. And then I have a course called Closing the Consult, where I really drive home why phone consultations or Zoom are just
Mhm.
so much more beneficial. One, again, that boundary, I've got more time because I'm not driving. For my family, for myself, or to work in my business to work on my business instead of in my business. But two, also when you have that in place, I do I don't even do video consultations because I don't always have my makeup on. If it's a work day, I'm in my sweats, my hair is in a messy ponytail, and it's not even pretty because it's short hair. It's like this nub, really. And if I just do a phone consultation, once I get an email inquiry, I text my clients or I text the inquiry. I let them know that I just sent them over all the information. This is if it's a qualified lead. And then I ask them what time is a good time for a quick 20-minute call. And I get them on the phone within the next 24 hours. And now in that time period, that couple has also inquired with, let's say, at least 5, if not 10. I know when we were planning our wedding, I was working at AT&T. So in our downtime, I was on my tablet and I was filling out inquiry forms. Some couples are filling out 10, 15 inquiry forms for one vendor in an hour. So if somebody gets back to that couple and they're like, oh, I'll meet you in person, what works good for you? Well, that's could be Friday and it's Monday. If I also got the same inquiry, I'm going to have them on the phone within the next 24 hours. And I'm going to ask them, I literally am going to ask them for the sale by the time we're done. I'm going to have them a contract within 20 minutes of getting off the phone. And then they're going to fall in love with the first person they connect with. They fall in love with me, then they're like, oh, we don't need to talk to all these other people. And that
Mm-hmm.
happens at least 90, if not 95% of the time. I very rarely anymore hear, oh, we're still going to interview this photographer or we're still going to interview that one. And if you are, fine.
Right.
I tell you, please do. These are big decisions in life. But if I can get you on the phone in the next 24 hours, they're going to cancel your meeting that's still 3 or 4 days away. So
Yeah.
that's another great thing. That's not just a boundary. It's also just a beneficial sales aspect. And I never had a couple say, well, I wish we'd have met you in person first.
Right.
Nobody's ever said that. Like, read my reviews. That is the least of their worries. And it would be the same for anybody that serves their clients well after however they book them. Nobody's ever going to go, well, I wish I'd have met you in person. I wish we'd had charcuterie together and a glass of wine. No,
Uh-huh.
you've also saved them time. And now they don't have to get dressed up and they don't have to work around their work schedule and they don't have to drive in traffic. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And even if they do meet up with another photographer after you, they're
Mhm.
still anchoring their experience with that other photographer with how they had that experience with Jess. And they're like,
Exactly.
oh, I asked this question. They answered it differently than she did. I liked
Mhm.
her answer. Or
Yeah.
like they're bouncing, they're judging the other photographer off of you because you were first.
Mhm.
So yeah, getting that
Exactly.
phone conversation is pivotal.
Yes.
Uh,
Mhm.
but yeah, okay. So as we kind of wrap up the conversation on boundaries, are there any other major boundaries or any advice or anything you want to give the listeners?
Oh, goodness, I feel like we've covered a lot. I am
Me
just
too.
going to remind you, um, life happens. That's the big thing I want to say, and it's evident in my life again. Like I said, my dad has got cancer right now. You think that it is okay to build a schedule in a certain way based on your financial goals and all of these things, and that's great. And again, early in business, you need to be doing that because you have to build a name for yourself. There are seasons of hustle, but once you establish yourself, and actually I did Hope Taylor's mastermind last year to get to step into the education world, and we even talked about it there. So then when you even if you jump into a new season, so you might have an established photography business and you've got great boundaries and you have plenty of time for your family, but then you want to start stepping into the role of education. Well, now you do have to hustle again. Now you have to be working crazy hours and more than normal. So it depends on the season, but just remember that life happens to everybody. And if you get, I hope you never do, but if you get a phone call that something is going on with one of your loved ones and you need to be there for them, I hope that your calendar isn't so full that you have to work through it.
Yes.
And that is really the biggest reason for having boundaries. And to be able to have boundaries, you need to know your cost of doing business. You need to know where all of your money is going, how much you're spending, how much you're outsourcing. Outsourcing is a great way to have better boundaries.
It
That's a great one.
totally is. Oh yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Outsourcing, the amount of hours that I have saved from sitting in front of the computer editing since
Yes.
I've outsourced my editing
Uh-huh.
it saves me hundreds of hours.
Yes.
And that's time that I can either pour back into my business to grow it, or
Mm-hmm.
time that I can spend with my family or just by myself. And like, you know what? I'm just gonna take an hour this afternoon and watch a Netflix show because
Heck
I
yeah.
can.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just for
Yeah.
that mental health of taking a rest and not being
Mm-hmm.
on all the time.
Mental health first. Layli Amadi says, oh, what did she say? I was just at her conference and it was amazing, the Creative Educator Conference. She says,
Yeah, just up the road in
yeah.
Dallas.
Oh, yeah. Okay, that's right. Oh, I should have met you and your wife. We could have done lunch maybe next year.
I know.
Um,
Yeah.
but take what you need, even if
Mhm.
it's a nap. I like that. So
Yes.
it's like take what you need, even if it's a nap, because it's all about mental health. So that
Yeah.
is, but I know I started first with outsourcing and editing. That was the first thing I got off my plate. It drove me bonkers. I'd go through Lightroom and I think I have this photo perfect. And then this photo is in slightly different light. Then I go back and forth. I'm like, this one's pink. This one's blue. Skin tones are my nemesis. So that was the first thing I outsourced. And then recently stepping into the education role and I launched my course, I got a VA for the first time and she helped me. She wrote some of my emails. She did all of my graphics. Like it was amazing. And then my first website, I love Show It. My husband's like, you change your website more than you change clothes. I could totally geek out on Show It. But in this, I had a new website last year to step into the new education role. I needed a new look, right? I needed a
Yeah.
new brand. And I knew I could do it and I actually even enjoy doing it. But in last year's season where I was hustling on the education side and still working in my business with my wedding clients, and I shoot seniors like UGA and stuff. I didn't have time to also do my website. So I paid somebody to do it for me. I paid somebody to do the copy. And copy is all the wording on your website. I remember I used to, like, when I was new in the business, I'd see all these things. Why you need to hire a copywriter? I was like, I don't need any of my website copyrighted. I thought it was like, like trademark copyrighted.
Right. Yep. Same.
Turns out copywriting is not that. I'm just going to admit my naiveness. So when I launched my new website last year, I hired a copywriter. I hired a website designer. I didn't do any of it because in that season I could afford it thanks to my business, and I didn't need to exhaust that time on it. So
Yeah.
it gave me more time with my family.
Yes. Yeah. If you are not delegating anything, definitely look into that. There are some areas that you can be saving time, saving money,
Mm-hmm.
saving sanity,
Yeah.
and really being able to grow yourself as a person and your business
Mm-hmm.
by bringing other people in and
Exactly.
building a team.
Mm-hmm.
So okay. So
Well, can I
Jess.
ask
Oh
you,
yes, yes. Yeah.
what are some boundaries you have in business? What are
Um,
some tips you want to give your listeners?
Very similar to yours.
Mhm,
I do two, on average, two weddings a month.
mhm,
I'll do three if it's like spread apart, or if it's one of those kind of like slower months that normally don't have anything. I
mhm.
might do three,
Yeah.
especially if they're local.
Mhm,
I only do like maybe three destination weddings a year.
mhm,
Um, Although I love traveling and I love going places, I do have a family that I also really love, and I want to
mhm.
be around them. And I don't always get to take the whole family, but on these trips, every now and then I get to take my wife with me, which is fun.
Mhm.
We got to go to Costa Rica last year, and that was a blast. But
Heck,
yeah, those also, I don't book anything on Sundays.
mhm,
If I do, if there's an exception, I make sure that I'm not working that Saturday.
mhm,
So I still have one day off, and it's usually like a session like you were talking about earlier in the evening, because
mhm,
I still want to be able to go to church with my family in the
mhm,
mornings, and and all that. I also have the hours set on my email and website for when I'm going to get back to you, and set those
mhm,
expectations with my couples. Um, I've also delegated quite a bit to free up some time
mhm,
and to have those boundaries. I also have boundaries of just like what I will do. Like, I've said no to more couples in the past
mhm.
2 years than I ever thought that I would, just
Yeah.
because it's either having a boundary of knowing I am probably not the best photographer for you. You'll
Mhm,
have a great experience with me,
mhm,
but like we're either just, styles are different, or they're just like,
mhm.
there's a lot of couples that are super into horses, and I'm like, horses are fine,
Yep.
but like, I'm not going to geek out about taking these horse photos with you. I will
Mhm.
do it for sure, and I
Yeah.
have, but I also have other photographers that I know horses are their life, and I will
Mhm.
send them that way.
Yeah.
So yeah, a lot of different little boundaries, and I'm sure I have so many more that I'm just not even thinking of right
Yeah.
now. Um,
You
but
just
yeah,
reminded me of some I didn't even mention. Like you said,
oh yeah.
okay, so I don't forget. Destinations, financial
Hmm.
popped up in my mind, and then you were just saying horses. I recently
Oh
got
yeah.
a lead for a couple that had the budget at a nice venue, but like in their like, tell me all about you. They're like, well, we're quirky. We like Star Wars. We were thinking maybe for our engagement session we can do the lightsabers, and I was like, I've never watched Star Wars a day in my life, and that's
Uh,
not me. I'm like, my style is romantic and fun and playful. It does not include props. But I have a photographer friend who is amazing for you. So not only am I passing on a client that I probably can't help their vision come to life, I am
mhm.
blessing a friend in the business with that lead too. So that's
Nice.
cool. A travel photography or destination photography. It looks glamorous. I've tried it. I might just be too A type or neurotic. I don't know. But the idea of, and what I've learned by doing it is traveling with my gear. And I do shoot off camera flash. I usually shoot four in a reception area,
Hmm.
a big I do shoot large weddings now. So um, having to figure out how to transfer 4 light stands and all that extra stuff that I can't just carry on with me. And then I shoot the wedding, and then I'm worried about the photos, and I want to make sure they back up to the cloud, in case we get it. It's just too much stress on my mind. When I like to travel, I like it to be a vacation. I don't like it to feel like work. I do travel in business for like conferences and stuff. And usually when I go to a conference, I make sure we stay a couple extra days so we actually get to see where we traveled to. We're not just in the hotel or the venue forever. But destination weddings, I'm shooting one in California this year, and that's because it's a very good friend of ours daughter. But yeah, I'm already like, I think I'm texting her. I'm like, I think I'm just going to Amazon some light stands and send them to your house. And I tried to ask James and Jess, I'm like, how do you do that? How do you do that with like all your gear? And they're like, you can just Amazon stuff to their house. And I'm like, okay, that makes sense. But it's just too much on my brain. Like I don't know. I get stressed. I'm worried about the images. I'm worried about my gear. Yeah. So, and then financial boundaries. When I first started my business, all of my money went back into buying gear, buying the lenses we needed, buying camera bodies. I printed a list, like 2017 approved purchases. So I started in 2016, but I remember the first list I made was in January 2017. It said 2017 approved purchases. It's just on a printer paper, and I taped it to the wall above my desk. And it was like third camera body, because we were shooting together. So if we only had 2 cameras, we didn't have a backup. And then it was like, oh, the 85 1.2 lens. So in the beginning of the year, I would decide what I was spending my money on, like when it came to big purchases. So that's a boundary you can have, is figure out how much am I going to spend on conferences this year? How much am I going to spend on gear? Those kind of things. It's good to have financial boundaries in your business too, while you're also figuring out your cost of doing business, and how much you need to pay yourself and those kind of things. I think financial boundaries is something we definitely you need in life.
Yes, and that helps to avoid the impulse buy
Yeah.
of, oh, there's this new lens, or now they came out with a new camera body that looks amazing, and
Yeah.
I should go ahead and get that. I have the money in the bank right now. I can go ahead and do that. But like having those boundaries set, especially for conferences. I love conferences. I love going and learning and networking. And being in the educational space now, I have so many friends who are hosting conferences and speaking at places. I'm like, oh, I want to go.
Yeah.
Like Laylee's, I really wanted to go to hers, but it was over my son's birthday.
Oh
And I was like,
no, they changed the date for next year.
They did. I saw that. Yes.
Okay.
So it'll be it should be clear. It'll be right after my anniversary, I think. But yeah, like that kind of stuff where I have that boundary of, I'm not gonna go, even though it is like a 3-hour drive. It's not bad. I don't have to fly anywhere, but it is over an important time that we've already set to have a party and to like celebrate him, and that is a boundary. That is a priority for me, and
That's
I'm
a
gonna miss this one,
non-negotiable. Yeah.
but I can make the next one. And I can support her and all that, which it looked amazing, and very excited for her.
I'm going to tell you, nobody's paying me to say this. I started going to conferences a few years ago when I was so burned out, and after COVID and like the whole roller coaster of shooting weddings, having to immerse yourself in big crowds when everybody's telling you crowds are going to kill you, right? Because of the pandemic. And I was so burnt out, I almost completely closed the doors to my business. And I went to my first conference, and I was like, I left so revived and so refreshed, not just the networking, but being able to talk to other people who are, who may or may not be dealing with some of the same issues as you. You get people speaking into your business. You hear things that you otherwise weren't learning. Like I leave a conference so pumped up for my business. It's like those first years again. It was like, I'm so excited to do this. But Laylee's, if you're in the education space, the most, I had like the most light bulb moments, the most take home things you can do tonight. We were doing, my friend Ellie, she's a Hilton head photographer. We were in a hotel that night implementing some of the like easy to do things like Dawn from Tech Savvy Creative taught us. But Laylee's Creative Educator Conference, probably out of all the ones I've been through, gave me the most bang for my buck. I don't know how to explain it without like just overly so many good things that I would have never ever learned, or never have purchased a course from somebody, or never have listened to somebody's podcast. Like, it was worth every penny. I signed up right away the next night in the hotel while we were still in Dallas. And yeah, because like if you go to enough conferences and you start to see the same people, you keep hearing the same talks, which is great because everybody has their specialty. My thing is sales. I could teach you on sales. But if you were to watch me for at every single conference, you would not come to my talk because you've already heard it. So sometimes when you go to a lot of them, you've already heard a lot of the same stuff, so you don't want to repeat it. But what we learned at Laylee's is stuff I've never learned at a conference before, because it was specific to educators in the creative world. It wasn't just wedding photographers. It was creatives, people I never even knew they had a business, like that was a thing. Yeah, mind blowing. So please go. I've already bought my ticket. I hope to see you there.
Nice.
It was amazing.
Cool. Well, yeah, and I'll have a link to the what is it, the Creative Educator Conference.
Yes.
I'll have a link to that. So shout out Laylee. I don't know off the top of my head what episode she was on, but she's been on the show before, and it was a great conversation.
She's the most down to earth person there is, and she is a fierce advocate for people and rights. And like out of all the, I mean, I've met a lot of great educators in person, but she's the real deal. She really is.
Yeah. And I knew her conference was going to be amazing just because of the person that she is and the people that she attracts. I was like, this is going to be great. So I'm excited. I'm really glad to hear how amazing it was and how much you got out of it. And can't wait to see what next year is going to be like.
Yeah.
So, okay, before we go, there's a part of the show that I like to do where we talk about what we're loving this week. And it could be, a movie, a book, it could be whatever, a houseplant of yours. What are you loving this week?
What am I loving this week? So we are the oddballs that just started watching Yellowstone.
Okay, cool.
Not this week. Have you watched it yet?
I have not. I am also an oddball.
Okay, good. All right, good. I'm not the only one. We started watching it. Gosh, I just want to say it's only been a couple weeks ago, but then I would tell you that we just started season 5, and that would look really bad. But Yellowstone has been our thing. So yeah, there's Yellowstone, and this one stumped me when you sent me this question. I was like, what am I into this week? This week is going to be about spending time with my dad. Really, he's having, again, like I told you, he's having one of his tumors removed on Thursday to be sent to pathology, and my aunt is visiting from Florida to be with him. And so this week I'm loving family. That's what I'm going to say. Family and Yellowstone.
Yes, I love it.
How about you?
This week I'm loving a movie that I saw. I don't know, I think it came out in like 2015 or something. So it's nothing new, but it was new to me. It's called Mr. Nobody. And it's an interesting show if you like mind benders and stuff like that.
So you froze, and I never heard what it was.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So a little behind the scenes, we had some technical issues and like had to restart this whole thing. Which that's fun. Life happens. There we go.
Life happens. Yeah.
So
technology happens.
Technology happens often. So yeah, it's called Mr. Nobody. It has Jared Leto, who plays the main character, but this is like 2015, so before Joker and all that. And it's really interesting. It follows his life, and there's a lot of like flashbacks to different things, but it's almost like a multi-universe, like parallel universes, where it shows him making decisions, but then it follows his life as if he went like with option A, and then it also flashes back to his life as if he went with option B.
Oh.
And all of that and like the different scenarios and stuff through his life. It's really interesting. If you're a Ted Lasso fan,
Mhm.
Keely from Ted Lasso, uh,
Never heard of
the
it.
actress who played her, she plays his high school girlfriend because she was like
Mhm.
16 in 2015.
Mhm.
And yeah, it was very interesting. It was cool seeing her because she looks very different than she does
Okay.
in Ted Lasso. And I was like,
Mhm.
she looks familiar. And I looked her up and I was like, that's Keely.
That's
Okay,
how
cool.
I know her.
Yeah.
I'm old enough to
So
remember Jared Leto from My So-Called Life.
yes.
Are you
Yeah.
old enough for that? My So-Called Life on MTV?
Uh-huh. Yep.
That's when he
And
got his, like, first big role. Like, he was the troubled kid in high school,
I
so
think so. Yeah. Yeah. I
Mhm.
I never watched that. I was not allowed.
Oh.
But I remember seeing like ads and commercials and
Mhm.
stuff for we
Mhm.
were MTV was one of those channels that could not watch anything on there.
Yeah. I
But
remember when
yeah,
they banned one of Madonna's music videos. I'm like, "My, how times have changed since 1997."
so different.
Or
Yeah.
maybe that was the '80s. I don't remember.
Yeah. I think the first time that I was introduced to Jared Leto was in the 30 Seconds to Mars
Oh, yeah, when
band
he had
that
a
he was
band.
in. Yeah.
Mhm.
And then he was a character in Fight Club,
Yep.
um, which I really liked his character,
Mhm.
who is too blonde. But yeah, it was interesting seeing. He did a really good job in this movie where he plays a lot of different ages,
Mhm.
including like a 118-year-old guy or something. But yeah, it was an interesting movie. Believe it's on Amazon Prime Video.
Okay,
I
I'm
don't
gonna check
know.
it out.
I'll have it linked in the show notes.
Heck yeah.
But yeah, that's what I'm loving this week.
Sweet.
So yeah,
Have you seen
well,
Glass Onion yet?
I
I'm just gonna throw it
have.
out there, we don't have to elaborate, but so your viewers here, Glass Onion was awesome.
It
That's
was awesome.
my
Yeah.
answer. Yeah,
Did
okay.
Did you like the first Knives Out movie?
Knives Out.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, I really
Me,
did.
me too. Yeah,
Mhm.
that I love murder mystery type stuff, and Glass Onion was really good. I like. Um, was Is it Daniel Craig? Is that's not him?
I'm the
I don't.
worst with Hollywood and names, but I'm like, the
Me
guy from
too.
Guardians of the Galaxy, you know.
Right. Yeah. You know.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. It's probably not Daniel Craig because I feel like he was Bond. No, that's him because he
It was
was. I
him.
don't. Yeah,
He was the Bond
that's
guy.
probably Daniel Craig.
Mhm.
Um. Yeah, I am also really bad with names.
Horrible.
Unless they're like '90s celebrities, and then I can tell you all of them.
Yeah, same.
But yeah, I liked his very southern accent
Yeah.
in
He played a
those
good
Knives Out
role.
movies.
Mhm.
Yeah. But yeah, yeah, no, that was a good one. If you have not watched that, listener, definitely go check it out on Netflix.
Mhm.
But yeah, well, Jess, this has been great. I've really enjoyed getting to reconnect with you
Mhm.
and chat and see your face. How can people find you online? Where can they follow you? All of those good things.
Yes. So I never mentioned my business is not my name. It's 514photo.com. It's 514 photography. That's actually based off scripture that you are the light of the world. But you do
Nice.
spell it out. It's not the numbers. So you spell out 5, you spell out 14 photo. Instagram is at 514 photography. Facebook is there. It's dead. I mean, Facebook, right?
Yeah, Facebook's pretty dead.
Um, it's pretty dead. And I'm on TikTok, but really like the algorithm, so you know why I'm on TikTok is it just sends me like pretty cow videos and rescue dog videos, and I really am on TikTok for all the animal videos. So
Nice.
but I'm pretty sure it's 514 photography on TikTok also. Instagram.
Cool.
Instagram's really the place to go.
Yeah. Yeah, same. I'm always on Instagram. I definitely take in more content on TikTok than I
Mhm.
produce.
Exactly.
Um, and it's sending me all the good cooking videos
Yes.
and like the funny, I don't know. I just like all the people that are doing like funny skits and stuff
Mm-hmm.
that like you would see on like the old school Mad TV or SNL. It was like, this is the kind of stuff. This is what I'm here
Yeah,
for.
like the old
Yes.
SNL, like
Yeah. Superstar. Oh yeah.
I I love it. I'm also on, I am on Pinterest and I'm on YouTube. All those links you can find from my website. It's just easier to just go to 514photo.com and click the menu, and you can find all of the links to all of my socials there.
Awesome. Well, cool. Well, Jess, this was great. I really enjoyed chatting with you,
Yes.
and thanks so much for being on the show.
You too. Thanks so much for having me. I hope you have a blessed day.
Thank you. You too.